So today we are looking at what we call the law of ownership. The law of ownership. We have covered how many laws so far? For those that are good students, how many laws have we covered so far? 5 laws. Great. Clap for yourself. So we covered the law of estimation, and the law of estimation states that never underestimate the power of money. We covered the law of current position, which states that you cannot move to where you need to go unless you have discovered where you really are. And then the third law, let's see, students, the third law that we covered. The third law. The third law. The law of reason. Yes, you cannot shift to where you want to be until you discover why you are where you are. That's the law of reason. Clap for yourselves. Law number 4. The law of willingness. What does it state? That you cannot move to where you want to go, and you cannot move to where you're supposed to go unless you are willing. And then lastly, we covered the law of motive. Yes, why do you want to go where you want to go? Why do you want to go there? Today we want to look at a very, very important law. It's called the law of ownership. The law of ownership. I used to believe that the money in my wallet, on my account, or in my pocket was mine. I would actually call it my money. And in 2024, exactly March, that's when we began to do a series here of the Christian and his money. And as I studied so that I could teach about money, a few things struck my understanding about money. And 3 truths hit my heart so hard. I had known them a little, just had been familiar with them, but I had not known them. And these are 3 truths under the law of ownership that I want to drop. Number 1, the earth is the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's. Psalm 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those that dwell in. Job 41:1 says, whatever is under the heaven is mine. Who is claiming everything under the heaven? God is claiming. He said, everything under the earth, everything here under the heaven is mine. That's truth number 1. It hit my heart so hard, because if the earth is the Lord's, that means the 50 by 100 belongs to him. That means the house built belongs to him. That means everything on the earth is his. Number 2, human beings belong to the Lord. It's not only the earth, but human beings belong to the Lord. Psalm 103 says, know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us. We are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. So the earth does not only belong to God, but even what the sons of men have built on earth, they themselves belong to God. And again it says in Ezekiel 18 verse number 4, behold, all the souls are mine. That is God claiming. He claims not only the earth, but he also claims all the human beings. 1 Corinthians 6:19 to 20 says, you do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. So meaning you belong to God. The earth is his, the people are his, and the believers, he has a double claim of ownership on them. Romans 14:7 to 8 says, for none of us lives to himself, and none of us dies to himself. For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or we die, we are the Lord's. The earth is the Lord's, and the human beings belong to the Lord. And number 3, money belongs to the Lord. It's not only the earth that belongs to the Lord. It's not only the human beings that belong to the Lord. It's not only the believers that he has a double claim on. But money belongs to the Lord. Let's go to Haggai chapter 2 verse number 8. Remember, we are looking at the law of possession that says we are only stewards, but not owners. A steward is a manager. Haggai chapter 2 verse number 8. What does it say? The silver is mine, and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. So that land belongs to the Lord. The people living on the land belong to the Lord. The money in their accounts, their silver, their gold, belongs to the Lord. Touch your pocket. Touch. Do you feel the money? If at all it's there. If it is there, that money belongs to the Lord. Touch yourself. Do you feel yourself? To whom do you belong? Touch. Step on that ground to whom does it belong? Then what belongs to you? None of us owns any money. When I discovered those 3 truths, there is a way they sorted me. You know, there are people that can intimidate you because they bought a 50 by 100. Now they tell you we have bought 10 acres. Now we see I have bought now 100 acres. Kakana, don't get out of the Lord, because already what they have bought, they have this top title, upper title, but the inner title belongs to the Lord. So none of us owns any money. Whether we worked hard for it or inherited it, it legally belongs to God. We are only but managers. A manager is a caretaker. He's not the boss or owner. The earlier we know this truth, the better. To further prove that we are only managers but not owners, no one will ever leave this planet. No one will ever leave this planet with anything that God has created. We will all leave everything behind. Look at that phone. Look at that dress. Touch your earrings. Look at your shoes. If you are helped by the people of funeral service, the only thing you can be buried with is a nice suit. And I asked the lady who lost her husband, I said, what happened? She was telling me, she said, you can imagine even the shoes were taken off. He was not buried with shoes. Shoes. They don't usually bury people with shoes. And they can bury you facing any direction they want, not the one that you want. There is a certain apostle, friend of ours, he died, and he had not been to the village in a long time. And when he died, there was a conflict on how they should bury him. The elders said, we want to bury him this way. There was a fight. And after a long fight, the elders won. They said, well, every other thing we will leave you to have it. But as long as you allow us to bury him facing downwards. Said, because no one ever breaks that law in our culture. If we bury him facing upwards, he will disturb us. At that point, you can't negotiate for shoes. When it's an issue of burying you, whether you're facing downwards or upwards, sideways or this side. Just like no worker is permitted to leave a company and go with company property, you and I will not ship anything away from this planet simply because you and I are not owners. Job was considered the richest man in the East, and this man understood the principle. He said in Job 1:21, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. If you are privileged, you will be given a nice dress or a nice suit to go with. The fact that we will all die and leave it behind is evidence that we are not the real owners, but seasonal caretakers who will leave everything behind when our contract of life expires. While attending a funeral of a very rich man, a certain woman asked, usually there are talks. There are talks behind the scenes. So a certain woman was, as the funeral was moving on, a certain woman asked, how much did this man leave behind? How much? Usually they ask, how many children has he? How many wives? Are there any children that have surfaced around the burial? What has he left behind? And the wise woman, you see, when this woman asked, the one she asked was a wise woman. The woman said, he left it all. It was the truth. Everything. He left it behind. We will leave it all behind. And you know why? And we will not be complaining. You know why? Because we are only caretakers. We are not owners. Alexander the Great. How many of you have heard of Alexander the Great? Alexander the Great. Yes. This was one of the greatest men that ever lived on earth. By age 30, he had almost conquered the entire known world. He fell ill and eventually died. Before he died, he summoned all his generals and told them, I'm going to depart from this world soon. And I have 3 wishes that you must carry out when I'm dead. And he told them, he said, you must abide by the 3 dying wishes. They said, yes, sir. Then he began to mention the wishes. Number 1, when I die, my physicians or doctors must carry my body. Doctors, not funeral service, but doctors. Number 2, I desire that when my coffin is transported to the grave, the path leading to the graveyard shall display the wealth I gathered while on earth. He said, when you're taking me, let everything follow me. Throw them down. And number 3, my final wish is that my both hands will be put out of the coffin. Both hands. In other words, like you make the coffin but with open A place where your arms can. You imagine that coffin. Like this one out there and another one here. The generals asked him, why would you have those three mysterious dying wishes? And he said, I want my physicians to carry my coffin because people should realize that no doctor can cure anyone. They are helpless when faced by death. Number 2, said, I spent all my wealth gathering riches, but I cannot take anything with me. That's why I want everything to be put down. Number 3, I wish all people to know that I came empty-handed into this world and I will go back empty-handed. This reminds me of a fly that fell in a glass of milk belonging to a pastoralist. You know where we come from? They are pastoralists. They love milk. Usually when a fly falls in, they don't care. Flies are sometimes a part of the family. But this man looked at the fly which had fallen in his milk. He got it out. He looked at it. He sucked it. Then after he threw it there and he spoke to it in Runyankore. Said, said, you fly, I have to lick every milk from you because like the same way you came, that's the same way you will go. So I want to say to you that the same way you came, the fact that we cannot go with anything is evidence that we are not owners but caretakers. A caretaker is not allowed to go with company property. Even if he does it, it will be recovered sooner or later. I know of maids who wanted to run with their boss's dresses. And usually when the boss is leaving, when the maid is going, there is usually the last thing that happens. It is called checking the maid's bag. And many times things are discovered. You cannot escape with company property. There was a man, a king, who wanted to defy this law. He was called King Tutankhamun. Other people called him King Tut. King Tut reigned in 1332 to 1323 BC as the pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt. When he died, he was buried with treasures that included furniture, clothing, jewelry, and other objects. Do you know what happened? Let's welcome our guest speaker. He's already here. Dr. Moses, you're welcome. It is well. So, robbers entered that grave twice and stole most of the goods. Then in 1922, a certain man called Howard Carter and team, they excavated the tomb and discovered the quantity and spectacular. They discovered some of the objects that had been buried to escort the king. Most of the goods right now are in the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza. Again, we came with nothing. We will go back with nothing. Even if we try to be buried with money and stuff, Robbers will rob the graves, or eventually the variables will be excavated. Who knows that rich man that was buried this side? You know his name? What was his name? Is it Semwanga? That they buried with money. There was chaos. People said, there was an attempt to break the grave and take out what had been. What was put in the day, people came in the night to take it. Again, we came with nothing, we will go back with nothing. Even if we try to be buried with money and stuff, robbers will rob the graves, or eventually the valuables will be excavated. Nothing really belongs to us. The Bible says the world and the fullness thereof belong to the Lord. The people belong to God. The silver and gold belong to God. We are only caretakers or stewards. However little or much we gather, we will never own it. We will leave it behind. We will eventually have to account to the Lord how we used what we gathered. Ladies and gentlemen, law number 6. Law number 6 is the law of ownership. We are not owners, but mere stewards. And at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, we will take one piece of feedback. What have you picked from this law? And then after that, I will invite our guest speaker and we will have an interview. We'll ask him questions. There are tons of questions already that are typed there. So people have been warming up to ask questions. So let's get feedback. What have you picked from law number 6 this evening? We can have the mic go round and then we can, let's see who has picked something from this. Yes, can we give to Nalongo and to him to have feedback?
Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, it just was very strongly, brought out the fact that we do not own anything. All those 3 aspects that you mentioned, the money, the things that we have that we thought were ours. And it just occurred to me that the more reason I think we need to spend time to see that whatever we have, God has a share of it. So if it is my house, it's not just for me, it's not just for me. So how does God benefit from it? That should be the question now. If I have a car, how can I use it to benefit the kingdom? Just beyond me. I mean, not just focus on myself, because I'm very sure when God was giving it to me, he had in mind more people than me. So my house, I probably should open it up to other people if we want to host a fellowship, things like that. But try to think of ways. And of course, for money, it's obvious. We need to find a way of, having a share of that money doing kingdom business. So it just really was strongly impressed upon me, and thank you so much.
Let's appreciate Nalongo. We can get feedback from online before we have our moment with our speaker. Yes, there was another hand there. He had put up his hand to give his feedback.
Praise God, church.
Amen.
What has moved me is the emphasis on the stewardship. Personally, it has occurred to me that much as we are overly zealous about making money and so on, being aware that God is in control and it's His is important, because there is an issue of mismanagement when it comes to stewardship, and also sometimes being clingy clingy to money to a point that it prevents you from managing it well in terms of helping, in terms of using it for purpose of the kingdom and so forth. So that take home is so important to me, that we are just stewards, and therefore we ought to really utilize that money well.
Let's appreciate him. We take the last piece of feedback. Anything coming in online? Let's take the last piece of feedback from who else has picked something and you wanted to give feedback. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. We will be picking the rest of the pieces of feedback. But yes, Professor. So I'll hand over to Professor to help us with the transition. And one more time, let's welcome our speaker for the evening, Dr. Moses Sanga.
Thank you so much, Pastor Amon. And Pastor Amon, we ask that you take the seat here. We'll ask that, Pastor Amon, you take the seat. Another round of applause for Pastor Amon. They say that when you write a book about something, you become an expert. You can now be called to talk about the subject officially. And at the end of this academy, we are going to launch the book called The Power to Get Wealth. And it has 15 laws, activities, stories, case studies, and all the things of which you are privileged to preview as a participant in this course. Amen. So this evening, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring to you and to invite on stage this evening a gentleman that I've admired from afar and also from close. He is a father, he is a husband, he's a believer. Amen. He holds a PhD. He is a proprietor of a school. One of the quotes I love from him is that education is an equalizer. It's why he's in schools. He's done business in real estate, although most times he prefers to call himself a social entrepreneur because of the amazing projects he has done in communities to uplift people from poverty. He's a TED fellow, and he has spoken on many platforms, local and international. So ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Dr. Moses Sanga to the couch. And without hesitation, I'm going to hand over to Pastor Amon to take over the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Let's appreciate Professor. Thank you, Juma. And one more time, let's celebrate and make comfortable our guest, Dr. Moses Sanga. This is off the script. I met Dr. Moses Sanga in 2007. We met in 2007. When were you in Tungam? 2007, 2008. He was working in a small bank by that time. And that's when we met in a youth group at a local church. Very passionate for God and very generous man. We became brothers and we became friends. and he's been a destiny helper. And this evening, I am so glad to have you around. Thank you so much for coming. And we want to, Dr. Moses Sanga, maybe before we proceed, to give a little bit of a background. This very place where we are, he's the steward of this building, the owner of this building. If you stand here and look across, there is another building called Yusuf Plaza. He doesn't like that. But I want to give context so that you can listen keenly. There is one of the biggest schools in Lugazi called Impact High School, and he's the proprietor. And when we met in Tungamo, he didn't have any of this. He didn't, he just had a passion. He had a heart. Maybe before we proceed, I want to give one scenario about him. Our local pastor in Tungamo had a challenge with rent. And actually they wanted to dismiss him because he had rent areas of about 4 months. So the pastor's wife tells me, I was also just a university student, said, pray for Papa because they want to evict us from the house. I said, what's the problem? He said, we have rent areas. So I said, okay. So I took the matter upon myself and began to do a fundraising. And I went to the bank and told Moses, said, our pastor is going to be evicted. He was earning, like how much? Oh, how much? Less than 500,000. And he got all the money, all the areas, and he gave it to me. The money he had. It must have been like the worth of his salary. Said, you go and pay for our pastor. Those were our first encounters. And the heart of generosity from when I met him to date still is present. So I want, for your benefit, to hear his story. Tell us about your childhood. Was it full of struggle, lack, abundance? What was your childhood like?
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to apologize for coming late, but I did that on purpose. And the purpose was you have to prepare in advance. Because if you don't prepare in advance, you will always be late for everything. So that's why I came late. And I thought I would actually find you when you're about to leave, so that I make the message very clear that if you come late, you'll always be late for everything. If you don't prepare in advance, because the president was passing here, and I actually had to jump on a border because it was getting so late. And the message wasn't going to be delivered because I thought I would find when you have gone. So I apologize for that.
Yeah. So
Childhood, yes. I think I was lucky and unlucky, both lucky and unlucky, because my parents divorced when I was very young. I was like 2 years old when my parents divorced. And I went to live with my father. Some of you know my father. But I was lucky because he never remarried. So I am an only child. My father has only me. So I was very unlucky because I didn't grow up with my mother. But I was also very lucky because I didn't have a stepmom. Although my father was struggling, but I did not endure the hardships I see many people with stepmothers go through. So my childhood, I would say, was both happy and sad, like everyone's. So I don't want to dwell on how hard things were, because I think everyone has gone through hard life. So yeah, I thank God for the moments that I enjoyed as a child, and I also thank God for the hard ones. because they are all part of my story.
Wow. Your education was, your background was in accounting. That's what you studied in the university. You worked a little in a bank, and you had the potential to rise through the ranks. But at a certain point, you diverted into business. How did that happen? Why did you leave the path of employment and take on a different path?
So I think I will go back. When I finished senior 6, I was admitted to law school like him. I actually studied law for 6 months, for 2 semesters. And then one of my professors said, "You are in the wrong course. Every time we talk, you say you want to be a businessman. Why do you want to study law? You can always hire a lawyer to write your contracts. But you need to learn numbers. To be a businessman, you have to be good with numbers. So go to business school." So I missed, but he connected me to, I think he knew Mr. Barunywa. So I enrolled to BBA and left law and went to MOOBS. And deliberately I went I studied accounting because I wanted to learn something about numbers. What is a profit? What is a loss? What is an asset? What is a liability? You see, these things sound like very basic things. But most people here in this country are poor because they don't know the difference between a liability and an asset. I will give you an example. When I built this building, I was driving a Corolla 2. I don't know, Mr. Ojambo might know.
A starlet?
A starlet. It looks like a starlet. And when I came to buy this plot, the guy who sold it to me is there. I was like, "Ono broker. Tosobola kuvuga motoka weti n'ogula plot eno." Because my car was so small, and I'm also a small man. So he thought there is no way I can afford a plot in Kampala. But that's what mistakes many people make. Someone earns like 2 million shillings, he goes to a bank, borrows money and buys a big car because he wants to impress people who don't even care about them. So I think the point is, if you know what a liability is, because the car is a liability, once you drive it out of the bond, it loses like 80%, 20% of its value before you even drive it. If you want to resell it immediately, even if you go back to the guy who has sold it to you, he cannot give you the exact money you have given him. It has already lost what? Value. So that is what I wanted to learn. The difference between an asset and a liability. And the simple definition is, an asset puts money in your pocket, a liability takes away money from your pocket. So anything that takes away money, your phone, you have to put airtime. It's a liability. If you have a katochi, you can call. If you have Mapesa, you can also call. What is the difference? The difference is Mapesa costs less than a smartphone. So that is why I went to business school. Yes.
So a woman's hair which has to go to the salon week in, week out, is it an asset or a liability?
I don't. I don't want to offend people, but I think you know the answer to that. If you're one of those people who survive on your body, then maybe it is an asset. But I'm sure none of you here does that. But if you don't get anything from there, probably it is a waste of money to spend a lot of money on. Okay, but I mean, there are also other benefits that we can't talk about.
No offense, just we were trying. So now you transition from employment, and then you eventually, in employment, it was stable, you were assured of a salary, and by that time you had risen a lot through the ranks, but you took a path that was risky. why did you take that path, and how was that path? What were some of the challenges you found trying to venture into the world of business?
Okay. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the question. I want to emphasize one thing. Not everyone should be a business person. Business is not for everyone. And I think the most important thing is to understand your calling. What have you been called to do? I've actually recently realized that I'm not called to be a businessman myself. I struggle with business. I like starting things, Pastor Amon knows, but I don't love managing things. Because my head likes creating ideas. So I don't concentrate on the one that I have created. Like now, this building, I'm sure you can take a year without seeing me here, right? There are businesses that I have started and I have not visited them in 5 years. What kind of business is that? You don't visit. But my calling is I start things. So maybe you can say I like starting things but not managing them. But the point I was trying to make is, the biggest problem here we have, especially in Africa, is we want to be part of a herd. The herd mentality. Do you know what a herd is? For us, we grew up grazing cows. Cows want to go together. So most of us want to do what your neighbor is doing. If he has gone into politics and he is now respected in the village, you feel like I should also do everything to go to parliament. That's why every young man is going to parliament. Now churches, if someone starts one good ministry, Pastor Amon, and is admired, everyone wants to start a small church. And now we start fighting. If you start a saloon in the village, and now the saloon has become successful, everyone wants to start what? A saloon. That's a hard mentality. But I think, how do you get out of struggling? Like what he's telling me. I used to have a job. When I finished as an accountant, I did a project and sold it to the government. I was very young. Someone took me to the president, and the president said, "Young man, are you the one who wrote this book?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What do you want?" Because I was so young and I didn't know money, I asked for 200 million. But even that 200 million, they never gave it to me. They started telling me, because you are from Western Uganda, now you think you can come and take money, and now you want the president to give you our jobs. They even wanted to poison me there at the NRM secretariat. I was still a very young man in the university. And then I said, what kind of people are these? These are people we see on TV. They are putting on ties. They are as old as your father. And they are actually telling you that you want to take their job. You haven't even graduated from the university. So they didn't give me the money. So me, I actually, government, people say, mwe mufunye mu kintu naye nze government yanyaga millions zange meka 2 nakati nkyagibanja. So that is how I ended up getting a job. So I had borrowed 5 million shillings at that time to invest in this project. I had hired people, and now I had to look for a job to pay the money. So the only reason I went to the bank was to get money to pay the debt. And once I paid the debt, I resigned. I actually worked for a bank for 1.5 years, I think. And that is the only job I've ever done in my life. But for me, since I was a little kid, I knew that I didn't want to work for anyone. I wanted to work for myself. But not everyone should do what I did, because it was very difficult. I remember at one time I had to sell my bed, my TV, everything in the house. And my girlfriend, I used to have a girlfriend that I had at the university. We had dated for a long time. And when you finish university, you want to get married. These women are ready to get married. And you are still trying, you are selling your bed. And she's wondering, now where are we going to sleep? So she even left me because she started thinking that I had no future. Actually, when I sold my bed and my mattress, she got my papers and got for me a job in a company called Pace. I don't know whether it is still existing. It's an NGO. At the bank, they were paying me 420,000, I remember. And this NGO was going to pay me 7 million per month. On the day they gave me a job, they gave me a pickup, hard body. They gave me 2 million to go and buy clothes. And they were going to pay me an allowance of 75,000 per day. I was going to be regional manager. They used to sell condoms. And, sexual health. You go talk to people about protecting themselves. But these NGOs have money. So, and because my girlfriend had gotten me the job, I called her and said, they have given me the job. She was like, Atumaze. Now when are you marrying me? Something like that. But I didn't do the job. I worked there for 2 weeks. I couldn't sleep. I would feel voices telling me you are betraying yourself. You've left your job to do business. Now because you don't have a bed, you are now going back to employment. So what I did is my girlfriend used to come to see me on Friday. She still lived with her parents. And then we would hang around over the weekend. But now on Friday when she came, she found the car wasn't there. So I resigned before she came back. I took back the car. I still had there 2 million. I hadn't spent it because I wasn't sure that I was going to take the job. But when I took back the car and the money, I didn't even have transport to go back home. Now, this office was in Kololo somewhere. I don't know whether they're still in Kololo. And I was staying in Chireka at that time in a place called Kasoko. So I had there a small house. And I had to walk from Kololo. But the human resource manager was an old lady. Said, young man, anya kuloga. Because it didn't make sense. She asked me, do you have money for business? Do you have capital? I said, no. How do you leave a job that is going to pay you 7 million when you don't even have transport to go back home? I was like, I don't know, but I will figure it out. That's how determined I was. She was a parent. She gave me 100,000 and told her driver to drop me at home. He said, "Tomuleka mukuvo mwana na hizo kubarika ekichama." Because and I could really also feel like maybe there's something wrong with me because I was like possessed. I didn't want a job, and it was hard. But that is somehow when you know this is my calling. Because even when I left the job, my girlfriend came. She was like, now you want to waste your life? She naechangamwao for 2 weeks. But when she said, if you want to waste your life, waste yours alone. That day I made a decision to distance myself from her. But my plan, I loved her so much. My plan was, let me distance myself from her for 6 months. I figure out my way, then I look for her. So when she tried to come back, I blocked her number, stopped picking her calls, and somehow when I made those decisions, things started changing. Miracles happened. Nze nalaba ku miracle bannaye. Jesirabangako. So people ask for proof that God exists. Me, I can give you two scenarios. When I failed to get money from government, I went back home. I used to have a cousin brother who worked on Uganda Road. I went to his house and told him, you know what, I'm not going back to government. These people will even kill me. He said, you know what, you're about to finish. Look for a job. So he said, let's fast. I'd never fasted. I wasn't even serious about God at that time. So I fasted for 2 days with him. And somehow I read in the Bible that when you fast, don't go out, people see when you're pale and know that you're fasting. So I stayed in the house. It was a dry fast. And I was sleeping. This is a true story. And I heard a voice telling me, wake up, there is a bank next door. Two blocks from this where you are. Ask for a job, you get it. I woke up and asked my cousin, is there a bank here? He said, yeah. I'll walk our office, kenda bao. Tiro kulaba bagamba head office ya bank. I went there and I asked the security guard, is there a bank here? He said, yeah, this is the head office of a bank. Is there a job here? He said, yeah, The deadline is today. And this was about to after lunch, around 2. So I went and got my papers. I hadn't even got a transcript. I had a testimonial. I wrote an application and handed in. And I got, that is the job he's talking about. That is how I got the job to go to Ntungamo. A voice I don't know. I say, Nayama yembe gajagatango. I'm sure it was good. That is the first scenario. The second one, when I had just parted with my girlfriend, that time when everything was not working, I have left a job. I have no I had a mattress, but no bed, no chairs, no TV. I am in this house alone. I still had a computer, like a laptop. That is the only job asset I had. So I saw an advert of a global competition. It's Unreasonable Institute. And it was already a week after they had launched. And they wanted only 25 people from around the world, the entire world. And you had to raise, at that time it was $10,000. But from people you don't know, and they must have a credit card. Now this is 2010. We didn't even have credit cards in Uganda. I didn't know anyone with a credit card. So I was asking myself, who is going to give me money? And no one should give you, at that time, I think the maximum someone would give you was like $5 or something like that. And you have to raise $10,000 from people you don't know, but you have to convince them online to give you money. And the first 25 people to get the money would go to the US to attend the Unreasonable Institute. So I sat down and I was like, what do I lose by trying? I wrote. Now it's a week after the launch, and some people were already at 8,000, 6,000, 5,000, and I also wrote my story and put it out, uploaded it on the site. Now the first night, I didn't get even a coin. I was like, I went to sleep. When I woke up, I had $2,000 from people I've never seen. I now looked at my story again and paraphrased it, now made it serious. Now remember, at Unreasonable Institute, they take on 25 people, but if you are not one of the first 25 to raise the money, they send you all the money that you've raised. If you've raised 2,000, they will send it to you. If you raise 10,000, if you're not one of the first 25, they will send it to you. So that became my motivation, that I can, even if I don't go, I'll get some money. So I started now recording videos, telling people about my story. And to cut the long story short, I was one of the 25. I don't know how it happened. The last day, I had $8,000. And there were only 2 slots left. And the other person ahead of me had 9,000 something, 9,800. It needed only 200, and I had 8,000. And there were others that had more than me. I was like, no, I'm not going to go, but at least I will get $8,000. So I went to sleep happy. In the morning, I wake up, and I have a message, you made it. I don't know how. These are people I've never met. So, the previous year, there was a young man from Congo who had also raised money, but he delayed to get a visa. He was a refugee from Congo, but living in Uganda. Had also raised the 10,000, but because he was a refugee, the U.S. embassy delayed to give him a visa. So they had told him to go with me now. So my institute was going to have 26 fellows. And they connected us. He was like, you know what, I have thought about, he was a doctor. I've thought about it. I think 10,000 is better than going to America. And you come back with no money. So I don't want to go. I'm going to ask them to send me my money. I was like, let's go to America. You don't know. This is the land of opportunity. And now I'm saying I don't want 10,000. I don't even have transport to go back home. But I was willing to go. And this man says, no, you know what, young man, you know how Uganda is. Where will you get 10,000 for free? Let me take the money. I also thought about taking the money, but I said, no, I don't want to take the money. I went and got the visa. I went to America. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is many people here focus on money. One of the reasons, there is a Luganda proverb that yataina manyo katonda gwa wachi. If you want to get money, take your eyes off money. That doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. But let me make it, let me explain it using my story. So my friend took the 10,000 because it was cash. I did not take the money. I went to the US. Now, Unreasonable Institute, you would go and attend. It is just to study. You come back with nothing. You just get ideas. Now the young man was like, I already have ideas. I know what I want to do. What I don't have is money. Now I have got money. Let me take it. I said, no, let me go. And I understand why these people are rich and we are poor. So I went to America. It was my first time to be on a plane. I sit on a plane with my village. I go to America. Now I reach in America. There were other 3 people from Africa. One I think was from Nigeria. The other one was from Liberia. And the other one was from South Africa, I think. Now, there's something I realized in America there. The black people were always begging. Telling you, these white people, how poor they are. They would collect laptops, you know. So, I also felt like begging. But I was like, man, I am poor, I know, but there's that dignity. Somehow, olimwavu nayenga toyagala kusabiriza. I refused to beg. I was like, man, no. I know I'm poor, but I didn't come here to beg. Let me learn as much as I can. So on the very last day of the institute, there's a lady. She's Jewish. She said, Sanga, I want to take you for ice cream. I was like, no problem. She wasn't even close to me. We had only talked casually. She was like, why aren't you begging like these fellow Africans? Are you a son of a king? I was like, no. But I have 2 hands and 2 legs. I am not disabled. Why should I beg? I was like, I don't get it. She couldn't really understand why I wasn't begging like others. Because everyone had like 10 laptops. They had gotten many things, some money, and me, I had nothing. I was going to come back with nothing completely, only ideas. So this lady, we had a very long discussion. I told her, you know what, Kim, I might be poor, but I am not disabled. And I have education. You know where I come from? Many people don't go to school. I went to school. That's why I'm here. I want ideas. I don't want you to give me charity for that I haven't earned. She was like, you know what? I want to invest in your company. But I need to send someone to come and stay with you for 6 months, I think. And they do due diligence. Then the guy came, he would even come to my bedroom. We were staying in the same house. After when he went back, the woman invested in my company, $20,000. That was the first investment. I did not ask for it, but I did not beg. So I think the point I'm trying to make is don't lose your dignity because show you're so desperate because you want money. See, the most reason I see many people struggling is they are so desperate to get money that even people start fearing that if I give this person money, I will never get it back because the way they want it, you know? And that same desperation is the reason we have corruption. One day, I think I was with Ojambo here, Mr. Ojambo. Either Mr. Ojambo or Jimmy. There's another young man called Jimmy. We went to a church. I don't want to say the church. And we were lining up to enter. The people were so many. I remember asking this young man, but if all these people go to church, who is stealing government money? Why do we have corruption in this country? Everyone goes to church. Something is not adding up here. But the thing is, some of us even come to church just because we want God to bless us with money, with a job, with a husband. Even God knows that on Ankula Bukuzi. His heart is not on me. He just wants what I have. And honestly, unless we get out of that mentality, we shall be in church forever and we shall not get blessings. Because God wants also to bless people who are genuine, who genuinely want to seek him first. Now, if you want a girlfriend, if you are pursuing a girl, and the very first day you're talking to her, you want her to come to your house and you sleep with her, you start doubting whether you actually love her. The same with God, in my opinion. Because most of us, tuli mukusubula dini, something like that, for lack of a better word. I go to church because I want a job, I want a husband, I want a wife, I want my business to succeed. Those are very good, noble aspirations. But I think God is looking for people that want to serve him with no strings attached, no conditions. And then if you do that, like I was having a debate with a friend, a Jewish friend, about, I think it was Abraham, who did not have a son, and then God blessed him with the only child he had, and then God comes and says, I want you to sacrifice your child. No explanation. Such a person is not a fair God. I think any sane person would say, wait a minute, what kind of God am I serving? You know, this is the only child you've given me. After waiting for a long time, and you want me to sacrifice him. First, I'm committing a sin. The Bible says don't kill. You want me to kill and kill my own son for no reason for a reason I don't even understand. But you know, the guy said, this is God speaking. I won't ask questions. I'll just take my child to the altar and sacrifice him. Of course, God just wanted to know whether the son is more important to him than God himself. So what is important to you? Is it money or is it God? And once God becomes more important, I'm sure you'll get money. I have seen that. And to tell you the truth, now this is the last one. I have never started a business to make money. Never. And that doesn't make sense to people. Now, he's talking of a school. When I started that school, I got a school. People who stay here, there was a school after, there is like a hotel down here. I remember the name. I forget the name. There was a school, a secondary school there. And they were selling that school. And another school in the village in the Rugazi. And I could easily have afforded to buy the school. And it made more sense to buy the school here. Because here you can get parents, if you make an international school on this road, you can charge people 10 million a term. Even more. Because people pay $6,000 a term for a child in kindergarten. Here, there's a school called Kampala International School. They are in Bukoto. You know that school? They pay, I think, $5,000 a term. I could have made a lot of money if I built the school here. But I went and bought the school in the Lugazi. You know why? And I got problems with even the administrators of the school because I tried to explain to them, but I think for them they thought that I had like sponsors abroad who were going to give me money so I wanted to build a school there so that I use it to get money from white people. You know, this black people mentality. And I struggled with people. But I built the school there because, one, when I was a little kid, he asked me about my childhood. My father, the reason my father got divorced with my mother is they didn't have issues. But I was born during the war. I was born in 1982. I'm an old guy. When Museveni had started the war in Ruwero. So, my father was a cattle keeper and he lost all his cows. So after, my father was like, man, my wife is so young. I'm now poor. I don't even have a home. Why do I want this beautiful woman to suffer with me? He loved his wife so much that he didn't even want her to suffer. So he went to to her father and said, I didn't go to school. The only job I knew was taking care of cows. All my cows were eaten during the war. I cannot afford to take care of your daughter. Please, let me go and struggle with my son. If I get money, I will come back for her. That's how they divorced. There was no problem. Even when my mother was sick, he would ask her, she would ask him, why did you divorce me? What was the problem? Said, I didn't want you to suffer. That was but the point I'm trying to make is, he had lost everything. So when I started school, he didn't even have money to pay my school fees. So I remember one day he was working for a man, Africana Hotel. They were building that hotel, and he used to work there. And this man, may his soul rest in peace. I think he didn't have money to pay him. I don't know. But he didn't pay him. And he couldn't pay my school fees. So they sent me away, school fees. And I remember a man who used to stay in Kajansi. Our neighbor was called Mbavali. As I was going back home, I went to his mango tree and got a mango and sat down. And he made a deal with God. I think I was like 8 or 9, I don't remember. And told God, as if I was talking to a person next to me, that educate me. If you educate me, I'll build a school that can educate other people like me. So when I got some money, when I wanted to build a school, but I knew that if I built it in Kampala, even if I gave someone a bursary, like that school, even if they give someone a bursary there, they cannot afford. Because lunch alone costs like $200. It's like the school fees we pay at Impact. Just lunch. So I built it in Lucas, but I can tell you I have struggled with one of the schools. I even closed it because of that reason. We gave people bursaries. I got head teachers to manage the school, and for them they thought I had the sponsors from abroad giving me free money. So even the parents that we had brought to pay school fees, they would tell them, give me 200,000, I put you on bursary. Because this man is very rich. He has a lot of money. So the entire school became bursary. There was no money to pay teachers. I started borrowing money from a bank. And when COVID came, I was like, no man, let me close one school and reopen one, because I can't sustain both of them. So the point I'm trying to make is we have that beggar mentality in this country. That people, even when you have struggled, people think like this building and the other one, they used to say it is for Kaihura. I think even now, I don't know whether they still say Kaihura, because Kaihura is no longer in government. And they're like, oyo mwana muto, senda azijawa. Because you are putting on like this, you are driving a Corona. He cannot build this building, it is for Kaihura. Because they know that the only way you get money in this country, you have to work for a government and steal. But I can tell you, you can work and God will bless you. And I think the last one, as we conclude this.
What you're saying is, you never ever started a business because you wanted to make money, but you started business as a vehicle for impact or something different. Like when you started the school in Lugazi, the purpose was so that you would avail opportunity to many young people who had no opportunity to study. Okay, so that's the point. Just I wanted to retaliate on that.
Yes, that's the point. And to emphasize that point is, if you work not for money but for impact, God will give you money. Now let me tell you one last story. When I closed that school in Lugazi, in COVID we didn't have work. We are at home. So, and in COVID, when we closed the school, I was sure I'm not going to reopen the school because I was tired of quarreling with people. So I wrote a letter to God. We owned some land in Najembe. Pastor knows it. It's in a forest. So I wrote a letter to God. And the letter was as follows. God, you told me to build a school. I built it with everything I had. And I failed to get leaders, stewards to take it over. Now I'm closing it. And honestly, I've lost money. So I even put the money I had lost in the letter and dumped it in the Mavira forest. Now, many of you, he said I have a PhD. One of the jobs I do, I think the reason most people get confused with what I do is I am always on my computer. So what I do mostly is I do consultancy for people. So if someone wants to start a business like in Malawi, he can contact me and I can study the market for them and tell them that this business will work or not work. And they pay me money for that. Pay me very good money. That is what I am good at. So I'm not a businessman per se. But when I get money from what I am good at, I invest it in projects that can create businesses. So the story I wanted to tell you is, after closing that school, I wrote a letter to God. This is what I want to emphasize, that really, if you had doubts that God exists, now know that he does. And after 6 months, I had even forgotten about the letter. I got a call from a colleague, and there was a World Bank funded project in Kenya. Now, in Kenya, there was an election some time back and there were riots. So the World Bank wanted us to quantify the amount of money that has been lost. And we went, and they wanted consultants to do the job. So I bid it. I also applied. And to my surprise, the exact amount of money that I lost in a school is what they paid me on that project. Exactly. When you would convert the dollars into Uganda shillings, it would come to the exact amount. So when I converted, I was like, wait a minute. What am I seeing here? Is this God compensating me for the loss? You can see how God does amazing things in different ways. So that is the point I'm trying to make. Don't do business just because you want to make money. Of course, don't do a business that will lose, where you lose money. But do a business because it is your passion. You love it. When we are doing charcoal with Mr. Ojambo here, I think Mr. Ojambo can testify. I wouldn't really care much about the money. Well, I wanted us to do the business. But because we are so passionate about the business, we made the money. And if Mr. Ojambo here can tell you, there's a time like 3-4 years where we were giving out charcoal for free. Am I lying? And so if you really do work, that's why they call it social business. Work that helps people, but also helps you. Everyone wins. But the problem in this country goes back to honesty and integrity. We don't have stewards. And he was talking about it. Unless we get stewards. And not say, never have a government nedda. Because there's a young man that used to work for me a long time ago. So one day, and he was political. So one day I overheard him say, Zeneva nsasula milioni 2, bwe masina kyenziba, mbeeranga akolera obwerere. So I called him and said, I always hear you say, government is, the reason we are poor is government is corrupt. Now, are you sure if you go to government, you won't be corrupt? Because the government is a sum total of the people in that country. The people we elect reflect the kind of values we have. So, and I'm not saying this because I support the government. No, I told you I even lost money. But unless all of us say, me and my house, I will serve the Lord. I don't care what the other person does and build those values, we will be recolonized. Actually, if you have children, emyaka 5 okuva kati basobola okuddamu ne batufuga kubanga ebyokubba bijja kuggwaayo nga tetukyayina kye tubba. Tubulwe ekyokulya, tubulwe enguudo, amasomero gaggale, amalwaliro gaggale, bajje, they take over the countries. Already it has started in Zambia. Here, Zambia no longer has an airport. I think all the things that the government should have, they have been taken by Chinese. Now, I don't want to be political, but values, stewardship is a problem. Go ahead.
Wow. Let's appreciate Dr. Moses Sanga. Some of the key points he has made. The first one was learning to distinguish between an asset and a liability. And he said an asset is what brings money, liability takes it away. The other one was the power of following a calling. Because he had a calling and he felt there was a call to the area of business. And that's why he could leave everything behind, however wonderful it looked, and then pursue the path of business. And then he also spoke about the idea of personal honor. So sometimes quick money makes you lose much money. This guy here, the Congolese looked at $10,000 as so much, but he looked beyond money. He looked at ideas and opportunities that could help him break out into a much bigger space. And he spoke about the need that you don't need to look at money to make money. There must be a cause or a motive way bigger than money. And that's impact, a need to make impact. Dr. Moses, we have, I think, 1 or 2 questions. And the people who have questions, whether online, whether here, you can begin to put together your questions and we will shoot a few questions before our time totally runs out. I want to ask, what are some major mistakes you have made in the journey of making money or stewarding money? Some major mistakes you have made and that you say you wouldn't want anyone here to make.
I made quite a number of mistakes. I think the biggest one was to trust the wrong people. And before I tell you the story behind this statement, I want to emphasize that you can't go far alone. You need people to go along with you. But the quality of the people you trust is the most important decision you make. If you get a wrong partner in business, that business can never work. Never. And there's something I've realized in this country. I don't know whether some of you can identify. In this country, many people, once you are an easygoing person, people interpret that as being naive, as someone who can easily be manipulated. And I also tend to be emotional, you know. You want to explain everything to the person and change them and believe that once they see your heart and what you're trying to achieve, they will buy the idea and do what you want. But what I've realized is if the person is going to Masaka and you're going to Kampala, you cannot be in the same bus. It is impossible. So I've lost a lot of money by not taking the time to understand the partners I'm going to start businesses with. A lot of money. I can tell you for a fact I would have more than 20 businesses in this Kampala. And I've started businesses that I worked in for 2 months. And I realized, like, this is not the person I knew. Like, some people can really go so low for money. And so my request to you is, before you find a business partner, take time to understand who they are and know whether the values you have are the same. If someone puts money ahead of everything in business, that is not a good business partner, because business needs sacrifice. It's like having a baby. You have to be able to spend, walk on foot when actually you have money, because you want the money to be reinvested in the business. But there are people who will start a business today and they want to buy a Benz tomorrow. It's like you plant osimba ekijanjalo and you say njagala kulya kati vaayo ba. It doesn't work like that.
enva za leero.
But so many people are like that. If you open today and they don't know what is capital and what is profit. If you make 10 million, he says, now you've been paying me 500,000. Now I want 2 million. You're making 10 million. But actually, when the investment is like 200 million, you haven't even started making profits. You are working for free. So be careful with who you do business. That was my first mistake. My second mistake has always been doing business because it can make money. Now, we started a few years ago with some colleagues. We started a company taking people abroad to Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Some of you know this company. But then I realized that although these are jobs, but some of the treatment that these girls endure in those places, you're actually like selling slaves. You make money, but you're actually selling slaves. So quickly, once I realized that, I was like, I don't want to make money selling people. So I left the business. But I lost a lot of money because I'd invested almost 300 million in the business. But because I was doing so many things, that's another mistake, doing so many things at the same time. This person, people came and said, we can make money here. And for me, quickly, I was like, there's an employment here. If you help someone get a job, you're adding value. But I didn't care about what kind of job they are getting. So once I realized the kind of jobs, I realized that I didn't want to make money that way. And I lost what? Money. So first understand the business. Is it in alignment with your values? Will you be able to sleep at night if you're making money this way? If the answer is yes, do the business. If the answer is no, probably you don't want to do this business, even if it makes a lot of what? A lot of money. Then the other thing, don't do so many things at the same time. That has been my also big problem. Like I told you, I have businesses where I take a year without even going to see how are things going. But because you've overstretched yourself and invested in so many things, it is better. Business is like getting married. We were having a chat with one guy. He was like, man, why are you not married? He was like, abalungi bangi. Oba wakalabu wa face, wakabina naitao. Something like that. Oba wakalabu wakabina, something else. Owa height naitao, waka waist naitao. So business is like that. If you want all the beautiful women, you can't get married. But you have to pick one and like, I will see someone more beautiful than this one, but this is the one I've decided to spend the rest of my life with. Even business. You choose one business as you like. I have been called to be a lawyer. If they tell me Rolex can make a lot of money, I will say no problem. Let me bless you with some money. Go and do the business. But I want to be your partner because I don't want to do many things at the same time. So that has also been a mistake I've made.
What's one of This is off the cuff. What's one of the major challenges that you find being a steward of so much in an economy where so many eyes are looking at the mango tree and are looking at that mango, and every focus is, every eye, every gaze is on you? How do you handle the pressure?
I understand. And actually, I will answer that question by giving an example of this church. Many of you know that when this church started, I would come here every Sunday. One day, I was standing there, and I think someone did not know that I was standing there, and I heard someone there say, naye ono omusajja buli business ayagala gikola kati atandise ne church ayagala kufera abantu. So that day, that is when I stopped coming to this church. I was like, I love Pastor Amon so much. I don't want people to misunderstand him, thinking that he works for me. And because someone who has maybe people hate you for nothing. Even some people you have never seen, because they maybe think you work for Kaihura, and maybe Kaihura arrested his son, something like that, because the people used to say I work for Kaihura. And now he doesn't want to come to your church because, those issues. So, to answer your question, it can be difficult. People will allege things you've never seen. For example, when we were building a school in Lugazi, my father stays near the school, and he hired a security guard. He didn't even tell me. This security guard had a wife, and the wife had a mental problem. So this girl gets lost. She disappeared. And now people started alleging that I had sacrificed the lady so that my school can get what? Students. My father even told me that they wanted to come at night and burn his home because, we do human sacrifice. Now, this was a lady I had never seen. My father did not even tell me he had hired this man. I didn't even know how the lady looks like. And my father even feared telling me. But because we were innocent, this lady, when she disappeared, she went to Ginger. I don't know how she reached in Ginger. And now the police in Ginger got her. And they asked her, where are you from? She said, I'm from Lugazi. Then they called Lugazi, police station in Lugazi. And they asked whether there's a missing person. And that's how we survived. They brought back the lady. And then that's when my dad called me and said, we have just survived. They wanted to burn the school and burn my home because they thought you had sacrificed this woman. So people here, we live in a country where people think that you can't honestly work and God bless you. So there are those challenges. But I think the only solution is you have to know who you serve. If you serve God, now these days I used to get quarrel and you want to answer everyone. Now when you hear the word, you're like, you know what? I serve God. I can't answer everyone. I can't make everyone happy. You continue. And continue on why you started the business, and you forget about people. But it can be very difficult. And I think it goes back to our values as human beings. Because if we are that 80% of us go to church, why do we still think that we have to first sacrifice people to get blessings? I don't understand. You wagenda wansi wa nyanja. At one time, I had when that small car of mine, when I got an accident with it, and then my friend said, you know what? Don't drive that car again. So I tried to give it to my mother. My mother refused. I gave it to a relative. The relative sold it. I heard that because they heard that all my witchcraft was in that car. So, that is the kind of situation we do what? Even people think you must be doing something fishy, to do. Now for me, I have never even seen, the first time I saw a witch doctor, I was young. My father used to have a shop in a place called Bukasa near Muyenga. And I used to sell there. And I was a very curious young man when I was very little. So I don't know whether you've ever seen this. They brought a head in our village, that this head could talk and tell you everything about you. Have you ever heard that? That head is called Musafiri, something like that. That was my first time to see a witch doctor. I don't know whether they were witch doctors or fairy. I don't know. But I told people, I saw people lining up, and I was like 12, I think. And I told the people, I'm going to prove to you that these people are fairy. And they wanted 500 shillings, so they contributed for me 500. I went inside there, and I sat. Because I was young, I didn't even have problems. I said, Musafiri, ogamba nti osobola okumbulira ebizibu byange kati mbulira. So me, I focused on the head. But when the head was talking, the curtain would shake. So I looked down there, and I saw a wire. So this man, I think in the curtain, realized that I was very, very inquisitive. So he said, sente zo ziwedde wowe oyagala birala. I was like, naye Musafiri, nga wafadda. Lwaki oyagala nnyo sente? Mbadde naakayingira wano. Agamba tosiriwala oba tolina sente kola ki? Fuluma. So when I went out, I told the people, now you are telling me this head can talk. Now you go inside. We are going to go behind and switch off the generator. If that head speaks, you will come, I will give you money. The lady went in, and she was like, omutwe gwogera nze mmanyi. So she went in, we went behind with the other kids, we switched off the generator. The head stopped talking. And that's how they knew that the head was actually not talking. There was a man talking through the microphone, and the head would just vibrate. So since then, if you still go to a witch doctor, because I know even people here, some people come to church and go to witch doctors, you are wasting your money. There is no witch doctor. These guys are also wafere who are looking for survival. The only witch doctor that is actually can solve your problems is God.
Thank you, doctor. Now, we need to find ways to bring this to a close. So if you have questions for those that are online and questions
Check
here,
1, 2.
we will take one or two questions, and then we will ask Doctor the last two questions from here, and we will call it an evening. So you have a question that you want to shoot straight to him, just put your hand up and then shoot it. If you're online, just type your question in the chat space, and we can be able to address one or two. You can be able to address one or two, and then as we see how to bring this to a close.
Yeah, so there are questions that that came earlier, but then you are here, and probably there are questions triggered by what he has said. Yes, Arnold.
Thank you so much for preserving your time to be around. My question is, based on what you know right now, what would you have done different running your life 10 years back? And maybe another one is, what is wealth to you?
Okay, thank you. Is there another question? Yes.
Bamta kitiibwa Dennis, nja kukozesa Luganda. So toyanza nnyo ebigambo by'amagezi ebyo by'osobodde okuba ng'oyogerako eri obulamu bwaffe. Kakati nze ndi mu bizinesi, ndi musajja wa welding, njokya byuma. So challenge gye nsinze okusanga nti emirimu gyaffe olumu giba gya bbeeyi. Oyinza ogenda ku kizimbe oba n'okibala nga kiringa mu miliyoni nga 15, naye omugagga n'otya okumugamba ssente ezo olwa competition ebaawo nti wona omugamba miliyoni 15 asobola okugenda ewalala ne bamugamba miliyoni nga 12, naye nga gw'omugamba 15 ng'ogenda kumuwa quality, ogenda kumuwa ekintu ekisinga. Kati n'omaliriza nga already ogenza okumugamba ebbeeyi beddinisa liringa ku 7,000 already nga nogamba sijja mugamba 7,000 kamugambe 5,000 already gyemu 2,000 ate naye najja nakugamba nsaliraako ku 2,000 ojja kunkuwa 4,000 so nobalabalamu awo nogamba okugoba omulimu guno kanguyingire ngukole so kati wakati mu kuguyingira noba nga otidde ogugoba ne gutuuka ne gukutuulamu nange ne gunnyingira so mbadde nsaba kumbuulira nyinza ntya okuba nga nsobola okuapproachinga abagagga abo nga sitidde okubagamba ebbeeyi entuufu gye nnina obagamba n'ekibuzo ekyokubiri nti kiki ennyinza okukola okukuuma omukozi omulungi nga nkitegere nti mukozi mulungi akola bulungi magezi ki goyinza okumpa okulaba nga omukozi omukuuma okuba nga tuwangala ffenna mukama akw'omukisa.
Thank you. Let's start with those. Ndoza kansooke n'ekya muganda wange owa welding. Ekisooka ekibuuzo ky'obuuzizza kibuuzo kikulu nnyo era njagala kukiddamu bwe nti ensi eno kyeweeteekako kyekuwa nti bweweeza wansi osigala wansi. Kati nze nnyina emirimu kankubuulire kankuwe example nti oli omuntu bw'ajja ng'asaba 10,000 okunkolera welding n'omulala najja n'ansaba $2,000,000 mulimu nguwa wa $2,000,000 olw'okuba mmanya tolina bw'osobola kukola 50,000 gy'osabye n'oyita either ojja kunziba oleete sitiira atagenda kuwangaala oba olina okusala amagezi gonna naawe okukola ki okufunako. Kale nze kyenkusaba waliwo kye bayita branding mu luzungu engeri gy'oteekateekamu bizinensi yo ekyo kye kisinga okulemesa abatandika empola okufuna ssente. Engeri gy'oteekateeka bw'oba ogenza okundeetera omulimu proposal gy'oleese eryetya ogiwandiise kapapula ne peeni ng'ate ne inki abadde aweddemu ebimu tebirabika na kulabika kyokka oyagala mulimu gwa $2,000,000 akapapula wakalonze na wansi kaliko ne chapati buto wa chapati side emu ne inki talabika bulungi kwegamba omuntu agenda okutunulamu n'agamba omuntu ono ayinza obutasobola ki mulimu gwange. Naye olw'okubawo n'abantu abangi waliwo abazimba amayumba ag'okutunda naye anoonya waayitira ajaga mmanyi agenda kuntuulamu aleete bisitiira ebitakola aleete ne millimeters ze twalaganye tagenda zituusa naye kasita nange njagala kutunda nange anaagula y'anaalabira eyo. Kati mwenna ne muyitirawo ofiiriddwa ne gwokoledde ekizimbe afiiriddwa ate tagenda kati eyagula bw'anajja n'amukubira n'amugana naye n'onguza ennyumba amadirisa gamaze ennaku 2 ne gamenyeka tajja kuddamu kuwaki agamba omusajja yanziba naye ate nga n'okuwa omulimu yali akimanyi tosobola gukola kubanga ssente ntono naye olw'okuba yali ayitawo kati ate ofuuse namubbi kubanga weeteese mu mbeera egenda okuwaliriza okubba okuyitawo. So nze kyenkusaba kikino kkiriza obale omulimu mu butuufu bwagwo. Bw'oba wandibadde ofuna emirimu 10 ofuna emirimu emeka 2 naye ng'omanyi nti gundi ampadde omulimu ngenda funako ate ngenda mukolera bulungi taliddamu kunyima mulimu mulala neekoledde ekkubo erimpa emirimu lubeerera. Naye okutya ate nkutegeera kubanga olina abakozi bakubanja landiroodi wookolera akubanja oyagala kufuna mulimu naye nze nsuubira nti bw'ositula kukkiriza n'otakkiriza kwekkiriranya bwe bakyogera n'okola ekituufu ky'omanyi nti n'omugagga n'omunnyonnyola ate n'ofunayo n'owa kompyuta n'akuprintingira quotation n'otagiwandiika kapapula olonze ke baazinzeemu capati kubanga oyagala kusevinga omanyi nawe togenda nafunako ne peeni ogyeyazise ku mwami kakemba akubaddeawo nayo yagwamu dda inki osooka n'owandiika n'okola booti tebirabika nakulabika okitegeera kye ŋŋamba naye bw'oteekateeka bulungi bizinensi n'omugagga n'omugamba manyi nti wagenda kujja yakuleetera quotation ng'esaba kitundu kya ssente zino naye nze ndi mulokole nsabira ku block of hope wali saagala kubba kyenjagala okuga ngenda kuwa milimita 2 milimita ngenda kukozesa roofing ngenda kukolera omulimu ogunaamala emyaka aga nga tozeemu gukola bw'oba okkiriza okumpa omulimu gumpe nange nfuneko okukolera nenfunako njagala $2,000,000 okukolera eddirisa naye wajja kujjayo munnange ajja kusaba emitwalo aga naye ne quality gy'ogenda okufuna yeeyo naye ate ekizibu kyensinga okulaba oli ajja n'akugamba nti agenda kukolera kituufu n'omuwa ssente z'omanyi nti ayita ate olw'okuba embeera eri yatulemeramu n'ogamba ate ye kati bw'omuwa yagamba ono fala mukutte ate n'akola bibi ebijja mu ssente ziri ez'owemeka owa5 kati ate akunyiigira nnyo ate abantu bano bamanyiganye ogenda okusanga ogende waguno si gwe wakolera gundi gwe baŋŋamba oli mubbi toddamu kufuna mulimu kati ate n'otandika okubeera mu mbeera ey'okweyiiya okitegeera kye ŋŋamba so nze nkusaba situla ku kukkiriza kwo osobole okole omulimu nga tegugenda kuteeka mu kikemo ate ogukole bulungi omugagga asiime naawe ofuneko ekyokubiri omuntu omukozi omulungi mu Uganda nno si bangi batono era waliwo omuwala wange wano nsaba ositukeko mulaba omwana ono Jole n'omwana nkoleganye naye emyaka oba 3 naye omwana oyo mwana mulungi ate mulokole ddala ate abantu abalinga ye ate mu Uganda muno babalwanyisa ng'obola okuba omulala ayagala akole ekikyamu ate ye omwana ayimirire ku mazima bajja kumulwanyisa bamulemese n'omulimu naye abakozi abalungi nga Jole ne bwe weetuulira bakyaliyo naye batono bw'oba omufunye ogezaako otya okulaba nti takufiira musasule mu budde bw'oba wamugamba nti ojja musasula $5,000 totandika kumuyiiya ate olaba landiroodi yatwongezza kati kanzijira nkubaako 12.5 olwajja n'akuga mwana wange mulwadde n'omukwatirayo kinusu kya 2 n'omugamba ze mbadde nsigazaawo ate nga yalabye nga kakemba akusasula $2,000,000 bugamba n'atandika okulaba nti tomuvaluwinga naye olumala abamulaba abakola nga bamutwala ng'akukola ki ng'akugendako muvaluwinge omusembeze omwagale birthday ye ng'eyo mujjukire omugulireyo kakaadi ka 2,000 mugambe munaye weebale kunkolera omuntu naye addamu amaanyi n'amanya nti mukama wange akola ki asiima simanyi kyenyongerako ku ebyo ekirala oli abuuzizza oyawula otya obugagga wealth waliwo obugagga ekirala bakiyita batya mu Luganda njagala kubugera buli omu n'omwami oli ategeere ndoza mwena mumanyi Oluganda wealth is there's someone being rich and being wealthy bw'oba oyina ssente ng'olina $1,000,000 mu banka tobeera na bugagga bwansibo kubanga banka bwe bagigalawo enkya ssente ezo oyinza obutaddamu kuzikola ki kuzifuna naye waliwo ebintu by'oteekamu ssente kale sitera nnyo okwagala kwewaako kyakulabirako naye katugeze ozimbye ekizimbe nga kino ate nga kirwawo kyemmanyi bw'oba otandika oyinza obutakizimba naye ekizimbe kino ne bw'olwala boodabooda neekukuba n'ogenda mu ddwaliro emyaka 10 osigala ofuna ssente kati eyo ye wealth kyekintu kyofunamu ssente ne bw'oba tokoze naye ssente bw'oba olina akaduuka ka Rolex nga gwe weekolerawo lw'otakoze enkuba lwetonye n'otajja tofuna. Bagenda okujja waliwo olukisi leero teyakoze nga bagenda ew'omulala nga bagula gwe ssente tokola ki? Kati awo ba tonnatuuka. Kati ate ye ensobi abantu baffe e Uganda gye bakola, agenda n'atandika akaduuka ke mu kikuubo ye n'alowooza nti afunye, naye neyeerabira nti akyalina landlord lw'atakoze tafuna, n'atandika okugula emmotoka za bbeeyi. Ogenda okulaba ababbi bayingidde mu kaduuka babbyemu sitooko yenna, banka ebadde ekyamubanja, n'addayo mu kyalo n'atandika bandoga. N'agenda owa musaafiiri guli omutwe ogwogera ne gumugamba waliyo omusajja ewammwe atera okwambala essaati myufu tomumanyi. Agenda okujjukira taata wange omuntu alina nno essaati emyufu. Olutandika kyamubuuza gwe wansiraanya, naye nga bambi musajja wattu talina kye yali akoze yali amukoze. So naye kati ova otya mu kubeera ne ssente n'ofuukira ddala omugagga? Ndowoozawo ekinyusi we kiri. Ekisooka kati abantu balowooza nti okuzimba ekizimbe nga kino osooka kufuna ssente nnyingi. Si kituufu. Nze kambawo ekyokulabirako. Ennyumba yange gye nasooka, ndowooza mwami ojamba ono nali sinamumanya, twali Lugazi eyo nga nnyinawo empangisa. Olwo nvudde mu banka tandise okukola ka bizinensi, ne ngende Lugazi eyo nempangisa akayumba. Nalina n'ennyumba, akayumba kange katono nga kali eyo kasokoso, naye nenkaleka kubanga bizinensi nali ndaba nga esobola kukolera Lugazi, ne ngenda nempangisa akayumba. Kati mba ndi awo, neiba wange omu n'ayawukana ne mukyala we nga balina akayumba kaabwe ka bisenge 2, naye kali ku ndagaano si kyapa. Kati nga baagala bagabane, ne mbagamba mukavaliwenga ssente mmeka, ne bakavaliwenga miliyoni mmeka 3. Nze ne nkabala nti akayumba kano bwe nkakubako langi nsobola kutunda ssente nnyingi. Kati ne ngenda, jjukira nakolanga mu banka, ne ngenda mu banka ne bagamba mumpeeyo akasente miliyoni mmeka 3, ne bazimpa ne nkagula akayumba. Akayumba ako nakakubako langi kyokka ne nkatunda miliyoni 48. Kenagula miliyoni mmeka? Miliyoni 3 nga nkakubyeko. Kati compound yali sinkole, ne nfuna abavubuka ne bagirevolinga. Mumanyi abantu bazimba obuyumba naye abantu abangi. Wali olabyeko omuntu ng'alina akasiisira naye nga kanyirira? Mwali mulabyeko eyo mu kyalo? Ate n'osanga omulala ng'alina ennyumba nnene naye nga tenyirira. Kati kyekyali ku nnyumba eri, yali ku kkubo naye nga compound erimu ebiki? Ebinnya. Kati nze compound nenjitereeza, nenfuna ne bupoivers butono nenteekawo, naye nga compound katono. Nenfuna n'obumuli buno bwe basimba, nembusimba ku bbali. Naye ndowooza waayitawo emyezi nga 3 nenjitunda miliyoni 48. Gyenguze miliyoni mmeka? Nengenda nensasula banka, ate nensigazaako kapito, nengulamu ka plot. Kati bw'ogamba omuntu ti ennyumba yange gye nasooka okugula nagigula miliyoni 3, agamba mulimba bwe mumala okugaggawala bye mutugamba. naye nga ate akutte essimu ya miliyoni mmeka? Miliyoni 3. Liability versus an asset. Mukyala kyenkugamba, baa omuwala yajjako okunsaba omulimu, nemugamba mukwano, essimu gy'olina esobola okutandisa. N'atandika kuyomba. Mwe bwe mumala okugaggawala bye mutugamba temutubuulira, gwe tukumanyi okolera n'akayibula ebintu bwe bityo. Naye nga mazima essimu ye capital nze gye nakoza ki? Natandisa mu mayumba. So that is how you transition. Tonyooma ssente ntono z'olina. Kati oyinza obutafuna miliyoni 3, katutandikire ddala wansi. Kati bw'obanga oyina emitwalo 2, kikyokola. Kati omuntu abeera n'emitwalo 2 n'agamba naye mu Kampala muno kikyensobola okukola. Naye emitwalo gyago 2 osobola okugulamu embuzi bw'oba olina jjajja mu kyalo, n'ogimutwalira embuzi. Embuzi tezaalira myezi 3, 6, naye emyezi 6 tegirwa. nezaala omwana mubiri. Kati embuzi si ya 25,000 yatera ogigula kozi ozigula mmeka?
Oyo ye expert w'embuzi.
Anga 25. Kati singa okagula akabuzi ako sente ezo zosuubira nti osobola nozitwala n'okyakalamu ku weekend, n'ogula akabuzi n'okatwala mu kyalo n'okalunda emyaka 3. Emyaka 3 egyo ojja kudda mu kyalo ng'embuzi ezo ziringa nga 10. Nimbye kati embuzi bwe begula 25,000, embuzi 10 ze miliyoni 2 meka? Olwedde ofunye sente zikutandisa miliyoni 3 zenakola ki? Zenatandisa okuinvestinga mu assets as opposed to liabilities. Ate oyinza noganze sina na jjajja talina na ttaka naye nno munnaaye bw'obanga oli mumalirivu ne bw'ojjanga nze sikumanyi anoonyanga pastor Amoni ono alina ku ttaka ng'ani alina ettaka wano mu kyaki nomugamba mpwano sikumanyi nange tomanyi naye nyina ekirooto njagala kugaggawala manyi oyina ettaka njagala ngula embuzi yange oginnundire omanyi nti tujja gikulundira ssebo ani awakana nti tosobola kufuna muntu akulundira mbuzi kati nga nsembayo kambawo ekirala ekyokulabirako ekisemba nga sinamanya mwami ojamba ono nabeeranga ekasokoseeyo nga sinawasa nga nyina house boy wange luli nga girlfriend wange amaze okugenda sirina kitanda naye nfuna house boy twasulanga mu nyumba embi nemugulira akapaliso twayalanga kapeti mwalimu obusenge bubiri nga ayala muwe naye wansi buno bukapeti obwa plastic mumanyi kati omuvubuka oyo namusasulanga ndoozi oba 10,000 oba 5 sikyajjukira naye olwokuba nti twabeeranga mu nyumba wamu n'atuuka naŋŋamba naye mukulu tonsasula sente zange zinterekere ne tufuna akatabo nga tuwandiikamu sente ze naye omuvubuka oyo yalina amazima nga ne bweweerabira 20,000 mu nsawo azikuterekera n'azikuwa. Kati bwe natuuka ne mugamba naye gundi nga sente ze ziweze zifuuse nga 1,500,000 ne mugamba ngenda kugoba naŋŋamba atonga ki mukama wange ne mugamba nkuttira emikisa gyo okuba nga onkolera naga naye nze naakola ki ne mugamba ovaawa naŋŋambye waffe Kannungu ne mugamba jangu enkya tugende wamu ne mutwala mu owino ne tugende waliwo gye batunda kasooli n'ebijanjalo mumanyi yeeyo mu owino ne mugamba olaba ebijanjalo bino byonna ndaga we babirima wano mu owino olowooza babijjawa naŋŋamba babijjawa waffe Kannungu ne jjajja wange abirima ne mugamba aha kyengezaako okugamba ti ebijanjalo bino bye tuli e Kampala byogula wali ku dduuka babijja mu kyalo kati ddayo ewammwe mu kyalo otandike bizinesi yali yakawezaawo 1,500,000 nange ne mwongererako 1,500,000 ezibeera 3 ne mugoba n'agenda n'apangisa kasitowa n'agula n'akagaali n'atandika nga ogenda ewa Nakigudde maama w'omuto senga n'abajjako ebijanjaalo ebyo najja akati abaavanga eno e Kampala nga bamusanga kasitowa ke mu kyalo ne bamwongereramu siringi 10 oba 2 yamala ennaku mmeka n'agula ka pikapu waliwo obupikapu buno babuyita batya oba nyongeza oba babuyita nyongeza obutono obwo kati n'atandikanga kubyereetera mbalala kati wali abadde abufunako 2 kati embalala ndoza yafunangako nga 5 kati wenjogera muvubuka oyo mugagga eyali house gaalo naye saagala kugoba basabi ba pastor Amon naye nze nzikiriza nti abamu emikisa gyaffe twagirekayo mu kyalo ne tugireka nga tugisibye ku nkondo ne tulinnya baasi ate ne tujja tusaka obwavu mu kibuga ng'ate emikisa tugireseewa mu kyalo naye nze nzikiriza nti pastor Amon ono ne bw'oddayo mu kyalo nga takyakolawo bw'ojja ng'olina ssente n'omuleetera taifu ya 5,000,000 ajja gamba mukama ki yeebazibwe naye tayagala kutulaba nga tuli wano tukola ki so bayibuli egamba Katonda alikuwa omukisa mu kibuga ne mu kyalo teweesiba mu kibuga woopangisa naye ng'olina woosobola otandikira mu kyalo nze nange nava mu kibuga nenzira erugazi mukama wange bambi mukama wange ebiseera ebyo yaŋŋambanga ng'akukubira n'essimu n'agamba naye ggwe emizimu gyewamwe gikujje ne mu kibuga gikutaddewa mukyalo naye ye nga tannalaba kikyendaba nze nga omanyi bw'oba okyalina kyogoba abalala baba tebannakiraba naye gwe mukama baba akikulaze ne waba akugambye eddayo ewammwe kalamujja oyambale kali kaleesu kaffe ke twambala naye nga omanyi ke kanaakuyisaawo ofune genda ojja kufuna manyi kirala kyenyongerako.
Let's appreciate Doctor so much. Again, he stressed the fact that we need to distinguish between an asset and a liability. And then the power of branding, cheyazemu omwami kitiibwa, the branding. And not to be desperate. He had spoken about the issue of being desperate. When you're presenting yourself, don't be too desperate. There was a guy, we used to consult for an organization, and there was a guy called Mudora. So, whenever, even long before they would invite us to consult for them or go do some work in Barara with the farmers, Mudora would have called me like 30 times. But you say, and then he would also call the when is the thing? So he would go there and say, people, even if you give me anything, me, I will do, you just give me what? Anything. So he showed desperation. When anyone shows desperation, you know that there is something wrong. So let's not be desperate. So there are questions here. Let's agree that we will give these questions to Doctor. Doctor will answer them, and we will put them on the Kingdom Wealth Academy page because our time is fast flying. But Doctor, in a minute or less than a minute, if you were to give feedback to this question, I have ideas but no capital. How do I resolve the capital question? Is it okay to take a bank loan? If you in a minute, knowing what you know, you would break that down, and then we will request after if you can answer these questions, and we'll put them on the Wealth Academy page in your time.
Capital. That is a very big question I get. How do I get capital? You know, the word capital, capital, in Latin, where most of the English words came from Latin, actually means brain. So every time someone says, I don't have capital, they actually, basically you are saying, I can't think. It is very unfortunate, but that is the truth. Now, the truth is, it is hard to start, but it is not impossible. I've told you my story. Capital, how do you get capital? Now, I'll give you one story. The only way you can find capital when you have none is to identify problems and solve them. I'll give you an example. I told you my father used to have a shop. When we used to, in those days, people used to go to Chikuwo. So my father would go to Chikuwo, buy sugar, buy soap. Now, one of the Indians, I think he had come to work for Mukwano. He realized that there was a disconnect between retailers and wholesalers. And when I've been to India, India is a very poor country. These people come here with no money. He didn't have money. So what he did, he came to our shops, even came to our shop at that time and said, I can help you bring things here. But you will add 500 shillings from what? Sugar. What you would buy from Chikuvo, you'll add 500. But it made sense because to go there, my father would get money to transport him to Chikuvo and also get money to transport him and the merchandise back to the shop. And it was much more than 500. So adding in 500 and you get merchandise at the comfort of your shop made sense. You understand? So we were very excited. We said, you are solving a problem, we will add the 500. Once he got all the people interested, he went to the wholesalers in Chikuvo and said, I can help you sell a lot of things. I have customers. This is the list. This one wants 100 kilos of sugar. This one wants 10 bars of soap, And he said, you give me the merchandise, I take, sell, and bring you the money. Some people would say, I'll give you my boy to go with you. You say, no problem. After getting the products, he went to the stage and told the people with the cars, ngenda kupangisa lunaku lulamba. Nja kusasula nga olunaku lukoze eki? Oyagala ssente mmeka? 200. Kale, tugende tuteekemu ebintu. Talina yadde 10. Akozesa ki? Mutwe. N'agenda apakira ebintu mu kikuubo by'atasasulidde. N'abireeta ku dduuka lyaffe n'enkwata ssente. Jjukira mulimu profit. N'afuna ssente, n'aggyako ez'ow'ekikuubo n'azimusasula, n'asigazaako profit we, n'asasula ow'emmotoka. Ssente mmeka z'akozeseza okutandika? Akozeseza ki? Kati eyo example emu. Kyemmanyi ne wano mu wetuwangaalira waliwo ebizibu bye twogera nako naye nga tetubirowoozangako nga bizinesi. So nze kye mbasaba, let's start looking at problems. How can I solve the problems around me? For example, I have houses here. Sometimes we can't find tenants. You have a phone, you even buy airtime. You can come and say, you know what? Nze njagala nkufunire customer. Bwe naleeta customer onompa mmeka? Nja kuwa 10%. Tikale. N'okwata essimu yo n'ojja n'ogenda mu nyumba n'okwata ebifaananyi n'oteeka ku TikTok account yo. Nyina ennyumba nnungi ziri Kisaasi. Ate kumpi n'ekkubo. Tuyina n'ekkanisa kumpi, emizimu tejjajja kujja mu dduuka lyo. Something like tujja kusabira. Oyinza ofuna omuntu nakkubira nagamba badde noonya ennyumba wa Saasi. Ente mmeka z'okozeseza okutandika bizinesi? Just mutwegu. Naye kati tuyinza okuba ng'oli wano okaaba tolina mulimu, kyokka naffe tulina wano ennyumba tetundaba bapangisa, kyokka nga ate osobola otufunira omuki n'ofuna ssente. So the point I'm trying to make, kozesa, gezaako buli w'obeera okulaba what problem can I solve and make money. Then your ideas will become your capital. And once you have good ideas, money will look for you. You won't look for money. Kirala kibadde ki?
We would love that Dr. Bino obize tubikuwa bitwale. We will give them to you. You respond to them and we will put them on the Wealth Academy page.
Musumba, there is
Yes.
a question he had started on because I
Yeah.
think it was about a loan, getting a loan or something.
Yes. Can I
Yes.
start with the loan?
Okay.
Yeah.
A loan. Nabagambye nakolanga mu bank. Ate mbagambye nti nange neewula. So, ngenda kugamba ebintu bibiri. Looni esobola okukuzza bulungi mu kyalo. N'oggwamu bulungi. N'ab'ekika ne bakolera patenti oyavuwadde. Ate esobola okuggaggawaza. Enjawulo kw'oyo ayavuwala n'oyo agaggawala eriwa. Ekisooka, bw'oba ng'otandika butandisi bizinesi nga tonagibala bulungi, sandikuwadde magezi olye looni. Kubanga tonategeera bizibu biri mu bizinesi. Naye bw'oba obaze bizinesi ng'olaba oyita, kati nga bwe mbagambye nti nafuna akataka, bali baawukanye, tebakyayagala kulabagana. Ennyumba nange enkira nasooka nakulowooza nti banfera, kubanga ennyumba y'M3 mu Lugazi mu tawuni. Naye omusajja nanganze ono omukyala sikyamwagala, ne bwendaba ekisiikirize ekye mpulira njagala kukaaba. Ne bw'ompaamu ndowooza ne bwe nandimugambye nyina $1.5 million yandizikiriza, kubanga baali bamugambye mutunde ennyumba omuwe ssente akole ki, naawe okole ki, ogende. Nga baagala kwawukana tebakyayagala, ate ng'ekibagassa ennyumba. So awo kasita obala n'ola nti mpita, kubanga nalaba nagamba nti ennyumba eno ne bwensala era sisobola kubula mpa $5 million. at least n'alyako $5,000 naye kanjikole ki. So in such instances mu mbeera ng'ezo osobola okulya looni kubanga oba omanyi sure deal sigenda kukola ki kufiirwa. Naye bwe biba bya 50-50 simanyi oba naafuna. Baŋŋambye Sudaani bwentwalayo embaawo zikola. Muganda wange bagenda nakukolera pate nga oweddemu bulungi nesaati nga
Banolya looni w'okusasula school fees.
oba yekola embaga ono nga tuli ntuŋŋamu kano ke kasitola akasembayo nga tulina mukwano gwaffe oba ono amumanyi ndooza takyamujjukira. Yakolanga mu rediyo emu manyi abamu temunawasa ya musajja eyo Rukutana bagitanga oba batya sigijjukira. Omanyi ankolera. Omanyi bw'okola ku rediyo bagamba oli celebrity. Naye ebigambo wano tubimisuzinga. Celebrity kati n'ayagala okukola embaga najja mu banka n'agamba mukwano njagala kufuna looni. Emubuuza looni yaki? Njagala kukola mbaga. Nemugamba mbaga nze kubanga mbaawo kale sinawasa naye siwulirangako bizinesi ya mbaga. Oyagala kutandika kampani ekola mbaga oba oyagala kukola mbaga? Nanga njagala kukola mbaga kuwasa. Nemugamba munaye looni bulya yaki? Lwaki tokola kyosobola? Nagamba nti nze ndi celebrity saagala abantu banyoome. Nemugamba kale n'asaba looni. Looni ne tugimuwa n'akola embaga. Landiroodi n'ajja ku mbaga amaze emyezi 6 tasasula. Landiroodi n'alaba embaga n'agamba naye ono omusajja nyooma bunyoomi. Okukola embaga weeti nga tansasula ateekwa okuba nyooma bunyoomi. Bwe bamuwa omuzindaalo yayogera bulungi teyayomba. Naye olwava ku mbaga ng'alidde n'ennyama yagenda ne yeeyongeza n'okweyongeza. Yagenda bugenzi ng'agula kufulu ng'aggalawo nnyumba. Olwagga omusajja amaze okukola embaga adde eka asanga ennyumba kuliko kufulu. Sente ziweddewo. Anemuunu takyalina wa kutwala mukyala ng'amulekera best man gaye nga tabula. Naffe anti tumunoonya. Banka eyagala sente zaayo. Ate waayita mmeka best man olubuto lusooka. Ate best man yafuuka next man. Ebikomaawo. Kati weewola looni weezityo ezitalina makulu ogenda okusanga ng'ofiiriddwa buki? Nfiirwa. Kale bw'obala bulungi ofuna, bw'otabala ojja kufiirwa.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together and appreciate Dr. Moses Sanga? I believe Dr. Moses Sanga is who the Lord had prepared for us. We had scheduled him to speak towards the end of the academy as one of the last speakers as we crown this cohort. And we had Pastor Sam of Canaan Sites who was supposed to speak, but he's not been well this week. And so he was unable to make it. But God makes no mistakes. We are extremely grateful. Thank you for opening up and sharing with us. We still have more questions. We will ask that you answer them for us, and then we'll put them on the Wealth Academy page. And don't get tired when we invite you again. Let's put our hands together one more time for Dr. Moses Sanga. We want to appreciate you for coming. We want to appreciate Price Media for covering this wonderful evening. We want to appreciate Brook of Hope for hosting the Kingdom Wealth Academy. And we want to appreciate everyone that joined in online. And our classes continue exactly on Friday. On Friday, we will go back to class. Yes, sorry. Yes, we are breaking. We will not have a class on Friday. We are having the worship experience. And we are having a guest. How many of you know the song, Akese Zobudde? Tukumye, tulide, tunywede. The people that sang the song will be here with us in the worship experience. And then, of course, on Sunday, we are having our 6th anniversary, and we will be here from 9 all the way to 1:30. Come and celebrate with us. It's been a wonderful evening. Once again, thank you, Dr. Moses Sanga, and once again, thank you, everyone, for coming.